ba, ba, ba. This just in, the Commander format is being turned on its head. The most powerful cards in all of Magic the Gathering were unbanned, and a slew of cards were thrown onto the Gamechanger list. And in other news, have you ever heard about the squirrel who built the statue of David out of acorns? Turn into the Head Games Commander podcast to find out more. Welcome to Head Games. Greetings and salutations, everybody. My name is the Zombie Apocalypse. You know, I ran into a squirrel today, and he was making a wonderful statue made out of acorns, and he said we should be, it should be named Steve, not David.
Oh, statue of David made out of acorns.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating.
Hello again, friends and opponents. I'm Jeterex, known in the animal kingdom by my spirit name, Tim. And I don't know why we're talking about squirrels, but trying to think about a joke about squirrels has just been driving me nuts.
That's nutty. Thank you for joining us today in the Head Games Commander podcast, where we talk about the Magic the Gathering Commander format. Tim, after a long talk with Gun3, the squirrel, I think we came up with a great idea to bring up on our new show. So, Tim, what did Gun3 have to say about Magic today?
Well, our squirrel prophet and likely messiah commanded us to talk about the new Gamechanger list, because our brand new bracket system got its first upgrade this week when WotC announced 5 kind of surprise unbannings that will slide onto the Gamechangers list, and a whole bunch new additions to the list that the community's been clamoring for. Today we're going to talk all about those changes, how we think they might affect your beloved Commander format. Spoiler alert, they probably won't affect it.
It really, really won't. So the first thing we are going to talk about were the cards that were unbanned, and thank goodness they are, because these are the most powerful cards in Magic, and everyone needs to play with them. So the first card we are going to talk about, and this card, I don't know why it was banned in the first place, but we're talking about Gifts Ungiven. It is a 4-mana instant. Search your library for up to 4 cards with different names. Reveal those. Target opponent chooses 2 of those cards. Put the chosen cards into your graveyard and the rest into your hand. So basically how this card works, you search 4 cards in your library, you have an opponent choose which goes in the graveyard and which goes in the hand. They already had this card in Commander for 1 less mana and 1 less card. And that's Intuition. So it makes perfect sense why this card is unbanned now. Don't get me wrong, this is going to be seen in higher power games. That's why it's a game changer. Usually how this card works, and I am so stoked to use it. You find your 1 piece that you need, and then the 3 pieces that get it back. So it's a great card. I cannot wait to play it.
Yeah, I think the ceiling for this card is incredibly high, where, I agree that it's probably fine. And, I don't see this one. I think we'll say this a lot today. I don't see any of the ones that came off of the ban list as being outright just busted for the format, especially when we consider what got banned recently. Like, there really is very little comparison there. But this one is, you're tutoring 4 cards up, and you don't have to jump through that many hoops to make it so that you have access to all of those cards. Any graveyard deck is going to benefit from all 4 of the cards that you get, which basically reads pay 4 mana, add instant speed to get the 4 best cards out of your deck, and now you have access to them. So it's just a very powerful tutor. So, and all the really powerful tutors, most of them anyway, are now on the Gamechangers list. So yeah, the deck that we spotlighted a couple of weeks ago is obviously going to love for this card.
It's hungry. It wants more snacks. So, Tim,
as if it needed more?
No, it didn't. But here we are. So, Tim, what's the next card we're going to talk about?
Next one, Sway the Stars. This is a 10 mana sorcery, 8 and 2 blue. It reads: each player shuffles his or her hand, graveyard, and permanents that they own into their library and draws 7 cards. Each player's life total becomes 7. So I think that this one was originally banned mostly because it kind of has the start the game over clause.
Yeah.
and that is a really kind of unfun play pattern. But really, I think that they're slowly moving away from that as a reason to ban a card. This to me seems like the type of card that the community will police,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Where, I think most people are just gonna not want to play with this card because it creates unfun board states. And I'm sure that there's, ways to get around it, ways to make it more one-sided, and ways to abuse it. But ultimately, like, it's also 10 mana. I was actually looking at this for my H&K deck and was like, can I play with this? And really, no. I mean, just because it's 10
No.
mana doesn't mean it's, because what it does is resets the game, and that's not how that deck works. So
Absolutely not. This would be horrible in H&K. I
yeah.
mean, it would be interesting, but like realistically speaking, again, this reminds me of Worldfire. That got
Yeah.
unbanned what 2 years ago. Have you seen that spell cast?
Mm-mm. Nope.
Exactly. I don't think this card is gonna get cast whatsoever. This is the policing yourself, and like they had cards like Karn who can reset the game, but this is okay. Like, or this wasn't okay, and I think Karn
Right.
is a better commander card than this. Now, I don't think Karn's good in commander either, but
Right.
again, I don't think you're gonna see the spell cast. Like, commander's more low to the ground, but there not a lot of people are spending 10 mana to cast one spell. Like,
Especially with what it does matters here, right?
yeah.
Like 10 mana to do something that's going to win you the game, sure. 10 mana that's going to do something that's just going to make all of your opponents mad and not actually win you the game. That's just not good strategy. So it's not. I really do think that it was banned because it created unfun game patterns, but you just don't see that nearly as much anymore. So yeah, this one was perfectly safe, and really, of all the cards that are going to not impact the format, this one almost certainly, I'd be surprised if I ever see this card played.
I mean, I guess the way to do this is you float like a whole bunch of mana before you cast it, and then just play out those 7 cards first, I guess. Like, is that like how this card is supposed to be good? You know
I
what I
don't
mean?
know. I mean, you don't know what you're going to draw.
Well, that's my point. So you
So
float a whole bunch of mana and draw absolute diddly, like that floating mana that doesn't do anything, and you're so far behind because you started the game over. Like, I don't think
well,
this is a good card to begin with. So
yeah, I mean, it's now your job to build a deck around it and to figure out how to make it work.
I mean, it wouldn't be so bad in Door if I have like 200 something mana, but I would never do that to people.
You're still spinning the wheel at that point.
I
It feels
know.
very random.
Well, and only 7 cards. Like, I can't. It's hard to win a game with only 7 cards.
That's right. Drawing 7 cards is not good enough.
No, I want to draw all 50 that are left because I've drawn the other 50 already.
That's
All right. So we're gonna enough about the card that we're never gonna see. We're gonna talk about the next card that came off the list, and that's Braid's Cabal Minion. She is a 4 mana, 2/2 black legendary creature human minion. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player sacrifices an artifact, creature, or land. This card is only really good in the command zone. And realistically speaking, that's going to get policed to begin with. Like, I'm sorry, if I see a Tergrid sitting across the table in the command zone, I'm going to be like, you got anything else? Because that's not the kind of game I'm here for. Right? And like, if you're building braids, I'm just going to say, nah, that's a hard pass for me. I don't want to deal with a 2-hour game because you're making us sacrifice. Because like all this card needs to be good is Bitter Blossom and Dark Ritual, right? Now you win the game.
Yeah.
And that's just not a good way to go. Like it's not a fun play pattern. But again, in the 99, it's not so bad because you're not powering it out on turn 2 every game. In the 99, this comes down on turn 4. I'm going to have a response. This comes down on turn 9 because you just drew it. Who cares? My board's too big for this to actually matter anyway. So
Yeah, and I think it kind of your point's valid, and it demonstrates how far the game has come since this card got banned,
it's
right?
true.
In that, like we've had Turgid since then, and
Hmm.
we've had so much power creep that we look at this now, actually, more importantly, we have learned how to communicate with each other. Like
Yeah.
expectations in terms of what a commander game is going to look like. I really think that more often now people are able to, sit down at a table, see something across, and go, "I'm actually not really into playing against that," and be able to, to police the game that way, like to make it so that you're not going to have those unfun game experiences when you see something like this across the table. So yeah, and I agree. I think it's perfectly okay in the 99. As a matter of fact, I even think that I think about the Obeka deck you built and how
Hmm.
impressive this would be in that. But
Hmm.
but again, it's a tool that could be used in these certain
Yeah.
strategies. And if that were the case, and you knew what was coming, and it wasn't in the command zone,
Right.
it's not as much of a threat. So I'm interested in this one, though. I think of all of the ones, well, I mean, I think the other than Sway the Stars, I think all the other unbannings are going to be interesting. Like
Yeah.
they all have the capacity to make waves, but none of them are obviously going to break the format. But I
Right.
think this one, I think we'll see this one, even if it's not
Yes,
in the.
I do agree with that one. I think we'll see it,
Mhm.
but like, and also there's times where like I just want a spicy game. Like when I whip
Yeah.
out Taval or something, I'm gonna want to play against something like that to see how well the deck can handle such a oppressive style of play. Like sometimes you
I
want
remember
to
the
test your stuff out.
Yeah, I remember the last time somebody said they had like a hard stacks deck, and both you and I at the time were
I was
like,
like,
"Yeah, let's do it."
all right, I'm
Let
down.
I don't actually get to play against that often, so let's see how these decks perform
Just
against that. And
just
really,
know,
like,
just know,
no,
I'm pulling out the power. Then, like I'm not messing
right?
around.
And like knowing that in advance, knowing that that's
Right,
the kind of deck that you're going to
right.
be playing against, that having that be part of the Rule Zero conversation meant that, okay, that actually gives me some information to determine how I'm going to proceed, especially when I know that that person's going to slow me down. It's going to change the way that I interact with that person. So.
I'm excited about this card.
Yeah, I think the next one on the list is I probably the one the community is most hype about, and really this was the one when all of us were talking about what's on the banned list that probably doesn't need to be there. This card came up so very often
Mm-hmm.
as a not meme answer to that question.
Yeah.
Like this came up as an honest answer to that question so many times. We're talking about Coalition Victory. It is a total of 8 mana, sorcery, 3, and then Wooburg for a sorcery that says you win the game if you control a land of each basic type and a creature of each color.
So the only reason, okay, so look, I'm actually thinking about running this in my door deck, not as the primary win con, but the oh my god, my door is gone forever win con.
I get it, and I honestly think that it is a good choice. And really, do you have anything that you have Dryad of Libylian Grove
No,
in that deck?
I
No.
have the ley line in the deck.
Oh,
And I mean, I
okay.
just have
Leyline
so
makes
many
up.
duels and shocks that's ridiculous. I think
Mhm.
Leyline of the Guild Pack makes all lands all basic types. But um, regardless, I have so many shocks, duels, and fetch or triumphs in the deck that it won't matter. Like two
Yeah,
lands or
so
three
really,
lands are just going to do it for me anyway.
right.
So again, this would be like just the backup win con, and I would never cast it until my door is exiled. So safety, people. Gotta have backup plans.
Yeah, and I think that, like, since you brought it up, Leyline of the Guild Pact is it really it if you have it in play, this just reads you cast this and you win.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
As long as you have a creature.
Yeah.
So really, like, you have to have Leyline, a creature,
Well,
and
my
cast
commander
Coalition
just
Victory and
does it.
win.
Yeah, so, but here's the reason why they banned it, and I kind of understand it. The only way to really interact with the spell is either destroy one of the land types, either destroy the creature that's or one of the colors of all the creatures, or the creature that's or the 5-color creature.
Or counter it.
And you can only do it while it's on the stack. So I get it. Like if this was an enchantment that said at the beginning of your upkeep, I don't think it would have ever been banned in the first place. But since it has such a small window for you to respond to, it just says, hey, you have to have the answer now, which I'm okay with. I mean, that's how a lot of win cons are these days anyway. So
it really is, unless you have the exact right answer at this time, and I am going to win, and sometimes people do have that answer, which requires people to be thoughtful about the the interaction that they're playing, and it's something we talked about a lot, is trying to figure out a meta that is so intensely diverse and that you can't really predict. How do you deal with that stuff? And it actually turns out that counter magic was pretty good interaction.
Don't tell them that. I don't want them to know.
Yeah.
We got to keep some secrets, Tim. Oh, man. But I guess that means we're on to the next card, which is also one of, like, it's a really cool card. So, Tim, what card is it? Oh, wait, it's my turn to read. What am I doing? Anyway, this card was a lot of fun. We're talking about Panoptic Mirror. It is a 5-mana artifact that says imprint X and tap. You may remove an instant or sorcery card with converted mana cost X in your hand from the game. And then it says at the beginning of your upkeep, you may copy an imprinted instant or sorcery card and play the copy without paying its mana cost. So what they were worried about is chaining extra turns. Because you put an extra time warp on here. I mean, I'm talking about you paid 10 mana and had to wait until your upkeep to take infinite turns. There's just faster ways to do it.
Yeah, once it's in place, it loops forever. It's true. Like we've accidentally stumbled upon a whole lot more infinite turn loops that are way more efficient than this.
Yeah. So honestly, like, I'm here for the memes that it can do. So when this card first came out in Darksteel, I guess it was 5th Dawn when I did this combo, but Beacon of Immortality had just come out, and I loved putting it on here. So at the beginning of my upkeep, my life just doubled every turn, and it was hilarious to me. And honestly, I'm half tempted to put that combo in Bilbo just because why not?
Right.
I mean, Bilbo already has Bolas' Citadel, because why not weaponize life gain? So here we are. We're talking about Panoptic Mirror and gaining infinite, like, not infinite life, but like that's going to be hard to take down if you're already at 100 life and you're just doubling it.
You know what? I'm gonna make a prediction with this one, and I think you could probably say the same thing about at least Sway of the Stars. I don't think this one stays on the Game Changer list.
That's a good possibility, because
I just don't think it's good enough. Like, I think that your point that there are faster and more efficient ways to do the most damaging thing that this thing can do.
Yeah, so
and it is a 5-mana artifact, and frankly, like, artifacts are in the Commander format just as vulnerable as anything else is.
If anything, more vulnerable. Because I feel like there's more stuff that destroy artifacts than there's anything else, so
really, like, I look at this and go, it's a 5-mana artifact that you have to pay. You have to basically pay the cost of whatever spell you're imprinting on it. It's incredibly slow, and yes, it creates a loop, but I just don't see this actually staying. And I know that to me, they're like going through the motions here, where they're showing what an unbanning will look like. Like, we're going to unban the thing, take it off, put it in the Game Changers list, see what happens, and then in the not too distant future, we'll measure all these cards up next to each other and go, does this really still need to be there? Has Sway the Stars completely ruined the format? And they'll find that nobody's playing it at all.
Right.
Now, and at that point, they'll be.
To your point about this being on the Game Changer list, I agree with you that it doesn't need to be there, because the whole idea of chaining extra turns isn't there until 4 anyway. So if you're doing it, it's a 4 anyway. Like,
Yeah,
you don't need
yeah,
to like double dip with your game changer list and the rules of the brackets. So
it's
I
true.
I
We talked
just I
about
don't
this
yeah.
before. Yeah,
I just don't think it
we
needs
talked
to be
about this
there. I agree with you.
when we first talked about brackets, like that the whole point of the bracket system is that there are some ideas like mass land denial and chaining extra turns that are kind of baked into it.
Mhm.
So why do those things need to take up game changer slots when really? So the point is that if this is obviously designated as a card that allows you to chain extra turns, having it in your deck with extra turn spells would mean that you're chaining those extra turn spells, which puts you up into a higher bracket anyway.
Yep.
And then at that point, it doesn't matter if it's a game changer. So your
Right.
point is very valid here. So I think this taking up a spot, I would be very surprised if this didn't drop off the list entirely.
There is one card that I want to see imprinted on this, and it is Coalition Victory. You have to stop me every
That's
upkeep, sir. Every upkeep.
that's ridiculous. Every upkeep,
Actually, it's
or just
honestly it's just ridiculously bad. But
destroy the panoptic mirror. Yeah.
stop giving away my secrets, Tim.
So speaking of cards coming off of the game changer list, we also saw this happening for the first time. We're still in beta, and now we are going to talk about the two cards that they have already decided to remove from the original game changer list. It's only two, so we're going to talk about these in a little greater detail as well. So why don't you tell us about the first one?
So the first card is Trouble in Pairs. It is a 4-mana enchantment. It's 2 and 2 white. If an opponent would begin an extra turn, that player skips that turn instead. Whenever an opponent attacks you with 2 or more creatures, draws their second card each turn, or casts their second spell each turn, you draw a card. I can see why they thought this needed to be on the game changer list. However, white needs cards like this in order to keep up. And like putting it on the game changer list to turn every deck that had this because it needs it into a 3 automatically, I think felt a little unfair. Look at mono mono white. Where's your draw? Mind's Eye, the really bad 5-mana and artifact that you have to pay to draw when someone else draws. Like, what's the draw that they get? Esper Sentinel? Yeah, it's only 1 card each turn, maybe. So, why I'm a little down on this is it requires your opponents to do things. It requires them to attack you with 2 creatures. It requires them to draw their second card. And it requires them to cast their second spell. Don't get me wrong. These are all things that should happen in the game of Commander. But, like, be responsible, people. This is on the field. Don't let them draw cards because them drawing cards is bad news.
Yeah, that's a tough one though, because like not doing any of the things like this card is good if either of those things occur.
Yeah.
If you don't attack me with 2 or more creatures, and you don't draw more than 1 card each turn, and you don't cast more than 1 spell each turn, I'm happy with what this card is doing.
Sure.
Because it means I'm doing all those things. So ultimately what we have here is White's very strange and bad approximation of Rhystic Study.
Yep.
And I agree that White needs it, and that when you add all the circumstances that are required for this card to if be good and effective, I actually think it's really balanced. I think that it's obviously good, like it is quite good, but I wonder how much that first line of text influenced the game changer status, because it does. Like, it hoses a specific thing, because we skip past that part all the time. But if an opponent would begin an extra turn, they skip that turn instead, so it blocks extra turn spells. So there's a part of me that's like, take this off the game changers list and let it hose those lower bracket games when people do try to have an extra turn spell. I like it. I like this being off the list. And the funny part is that I don't know that I've never played with this card. I actually didn't know this card existed until it was on the game changer list.
Yeah.
I'm fairly confident I've seen it in a game before, but I just did not take notice of what it did.
Right.
So like now I'm looking at this and now it's off the game changers list, and I'm like, great, now I can buy a few.
Yep. Yeah, it seems pretty solid to me. Yeah.
So the other card on the taken off the Game Changers list is Trinisphere. So this is a 3-mana artifact that reads: as long as Trinisphere is untapped, each spell that would cost less than 3 mana costs 3 mana. And it gives some additional explanation for what that means. It basically evens out your generic mana value to make anything less than 3 equal at least 3. So this is a stacks piece, and it's annoying, sure, but I'm not I didn't read too thoroughly as to like why they pulled this off.
I know exactly why they pulled this off, and you're gonna think I'm brilliant. So lower to the ground decks generally don't have a lower curve. When you are playing a casual game of Commander, most of the cards you are playing are going to be 4, even 3 and above. Because that's where the Timmies want to play. They want to play with the big beefy stuff. And do you know what Trinisphere does against Craterhoof Behemoth? Nothing. Do you know what it does against anything that costs more than 3? Nothing. So this is targeted for the higher power level things like CDH, because this card will do work in CDH. But it doesn't need to be a game changer. It really doesn't.
Isn't that funny then? So that definitely tracks for me, that it's like this is a card that seems really common in CEDH decks. So did that translate to we perceive this card to be powerful because it's in all those decks, but it's actually in those decks because of their meta? And really it's not at the casual tables at all, because you're absolutely right. I mean, there are definitely 1 and 2 mana spells in the deck, but that is not where most of your meat and potatoes are. Like, not where a lot of the stuff that you really want to be doing is. That's an excellent point, and for that reason I think it's perfectly okay to pull off of there, because it's not changing the games at lower bracket levels. It's not even really changing the game of CDH because they don't care about game changers. So
also stacks isn't like a popular archetype, so you're not really running into that many stacks decks, and there's honestly better stacks pieces than Trinisphere. Now I will say Trinisphere can be a little one-sided if you can tap it on a regular consistent basis. However, when you're playing Trinisphere, that's not usually what's happening. So yeah, I don't think it needed to be there to begin with. Honestly, I didn't know it was on the Game Changer list until I was told it was removed. Because that's how like, because that card doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, I will say before we move on that that I'm at least a little surprised we didn't see some other things pulled off, and we didn't carve out space to talk about those things because we already did a couple episodes ago when we talked about brackets and what we thought could come off of the list. But I am at least a little surprised that we didn't see a few more come off of the list. So, but I think that just means, you know, it's funny because I'm about to say they're being cautious, and then we're about to read the list of like 18 cards that they added or some noise. So like caution isn't exactly the right description for what's going on here. But I guess in this case, like adding a whole bunch of things to the Game Changer list actually, you know, based on the feedback that they got, I think that one of the biggest pieces of feedback they likely got was it's okay for the list to be a bit bigger, or they wouldn't have added so many things to it. I think they would have been more careful.
So again, before we move on to the next topic, for the sanity of you folks, we aren't going to read every single one of these cards because holy moly, there's a lot. However, the card will be on the screen. So at this point, if you are listening on any of your podcast listening apps, please do look for us on YouTube. All the cards will be in the middle of the screen when we're talking about them. And sometimes they'll be covering my beautiful mug. But there's nothing I really can do about that. So now we're going to talk about the cards that did get put on the Game Changer list. And preemptively, I'm going to say 90% of these I'm okay with. Like 90% of them, I'm like, no, that really does make sense. And one of them, I'm like, how did we miss this the first time?
Yeah, I think that like that almost all of them are, you know, high percentage, like you said, are easy to understand, and if you know the card, you immediately think to yourself, I understand that. There isn't any that I think are head scratchers necessarily. Some of them are like they feel a little niche, is all I would say. Like that, there's only certain areas where they seem like they're good, but some of them are like absolute slam dunks. Always should have been there.
Yep.
Definitely makes sense, and you'll and I think what makes that evident is the fact that if you play the game, if you play Commander, and you are an avid enough player to consider yourself more than just a newbie, right? You probably know a lot of these cards.
If you're listening to this podcast, you probably know these cards.
You probably know a lot of these cards. And that is a good indicator, I think, of how good these cards are, because they are intensely popular and they're popular for a reason. Right. So kicking us off is Teferi's Protection. I think that this was high on the list of everybody's like, why is this not there? It definitely, I've seen it create, I've seen it king make so many times. Making yourself the king. I guess that's maybe the wrong way of saying that, but I've seen it swing games in the favor of the person casting it so many times.
I mean, every time that I've cast Teferi's Protection, I have won.
Yep.
Like, this card has won me so many games, and it doesn't seem that I've used it offensively. There was a time where, like, I know once I untap, I win, and I will be like, at the end of my turn, I'm gonna just nope out of here. Good luck, guys. But I'm winning on my upkeep, so you do whatever you want. But there's no chance of you winning, so I'm just gonna go ahead and cast this now. So,
right.
I mean, that's a little cocky, but hey, it worked. No, this is not the card that I said that was like, no, this card needs to be on here, but this is one of those cards that it was like, yeah, it probably should have been there from the start.
Yeah, it's just like there isn't anything else that does what this does.
That's also a very valid point. Yeah.
Yeah, like it is incredibly unique design. It is, and really because of the fact that it uses phasing, which is something that is not really, it's really uncommon. It's really rare. It's mythic, you might even say. Like you just don't see it a lot. Right. And so the fact that they built this, it was such a push design too.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't come to a surprise to anyone that this card ended up on this list. Really, I think most folks were surprised that it wasn't on the first round, because it really is. I mean, I put it up there with Cyclonic Rift in terms of like, when this card gets cast, if it resolves, chances are that person's going to win. Like, I often feel like scooping to those two cards, because it's like, well, I don't feel like spinning my wheels for the rest of this game now that this is a one-sided situation.
So a couple things about Teferi's Protection. One, can't use Teferi's Protection in response to someone trying to kill your creature with Coalition Victory, because then you don't meet the requirements because there's nothing on your board. Two.
Just in case, y'all. Just pay attention to that.
Number two, imagine it on Panoptic Mirror. So eventually you can just choose this, because you draw a card every turn, and then eventually you just choose the card you want to put on there to win a game. I'm breaking the game of Magic, guys.
There it is.
We did it.
Game changers all day long.
We did it. I'm going to build a deck of nothing but game changers, people. And will it win?
Oh boy, yeah, a lot probably.
Yeah, it'll do pretty good. It'll do pretty good.
When you hear the rest of this list, the answer is yes. It's a 5-color deck that is almost certainly going to win.
It'll win. So the next card we're going to talk about, I've been hurt by this card. I don't like this card whatsoever. If I could, I would buy every copy and just burn it with fire. We're talking about Humility. Man, just saying all your creatures lose abilities and they're only 1/1s. Man, this just grinds the game to a halt. A lot of the times my removals on creatures, so it's like, I'm going to play my Acidic Slime. Oh, dang it. Like, this card can just... Who designed this card?
I think that, I I look at this and go, this is, because it is a 4 mana enchantment, it's also, with no protection or ward or
Hmm.
any of that stuff. Like, this is, dice to removal is a bad argument, but this is, a very fragile stacks piece.
Sure.
So really, yes, it is a huge pain in the butt, especially in the format where your commander is a creature and you have to rely on creatures to win in a lot of different decks. But if you have a commander deck, make sure that you have a way to deal with artifacts and enchantments. Like
That's
if
true
you don't
too.
have if you don't have a single targeted interaction for artifacts and enchantments, you should heavily consider changing that.
Yeah.
Get yourself some MDFCs that deal with that
Yep.
kind of stuff, or just jam a couple of pieces in there because this is exactly the kind of thing that'll shut down your game plan. So it's a good stacks piece, sure. I feel like this made the list because it does the thing they're always talking about, where it actually changes the way that the game is
Yep.
working.
Yeah.
And it very literally does that because all of the creatures in the game now having no abilities and being 1/1s completely changes the dynamic.
It's
So,
true.
do I think it's over? I don't think it's overpowered. I just think it has that quality of having a very unique effect.
Because there is a curse that does it too, but it costs 7 and it's only one player.
Right.
So like honestly, like this card places itself. When's the last time you ran into a humility? Like I mean, the reason why it hurt me back in the day when I was playing, 60 card formats and that was like legal and standard and stuff. Oh my god, I'm dating myself. Stop. Anyway, I've been hurt in tournaments because of this. Uh, yeah, I don't like this card. I want to talk about other things. Tim, what's next?
Okay. So in the next, the next is actually a triad of cards. They do different things, but they all kind of have a similar quality to them, and they all punish you for drawing cards. We're talking about Narset, Parter of Veils, Orcish Bowmasters, and Notion Thief. So again, if you know, they each interact with, your opponent's drawing cards. And in the article that Wizards published on the additions that they made to the Gamechanger list, they actually they put all three of these things together as these are things that interact with your opponent's drawing cards that punish your opponent for drawing extra cards one way or another. And so they all are seen as powerful for that reason. And that's why they all got added to the list. And all of them are kind of feel bad cards too. I
Mhm.
think Orcish Bowmasters out of this list is the one that I think is the least feel bad.
Yeah, but
Um,
it does so much stuff though. Like why does it have to have a mass on it on top of dealing the damage? Like if it were
yeah.
just a mass, it would be fine. If it was just dealing the damage, so, yeah, you're not going to have creatures after this, but like I get it. It's the card denial. Like you're going to punish me for doing what I'm supposed to be doing in Magic. And what I think this does well though, it makes wheel decks more fair if you're trying to keep it at a lower power level.
Oh, that's
Because
a great point.
not having the card denial is really nice. So like it just makes cards like the puzzle box, fairies puzzle box and stuff, like it lets you run things like that and stuff. Because and like I'm okay with punishing draw if it's like, oh, just take 1 damage to the face or whatever. I think the reason why Orcish Bowmaster's on here is because it could target creatures too. So bye
Yeah.
bye all mana dorks, and I
The,
think that's why it's on the list, because it just says
the
no
any
to
target.
everything. Yeah, if it was just the
And
target player or each opponent, I think it's fine.
it also does it cheaper than any other card in the game.
It does do it
Like
cheaper.
it does the when opponent draws extra cards, but it's when they draw extra cards, I believe,
At
not just any
flash
card.
speed.
Mm-hmm.
Orcish
Yes.
Bowmaster, when it ever
Yep.
enters and just draw a card, except for the first
Yep.
on each of their draw steps. So
So
like even if I draw a card on your turn, like it still pings. That's crazy.
right.
So good.
Yeah, so it does that like damage on opponents drawing extra cards cheaper than any other thing in the format, and it's got extra stuff on there. So yeah, and the other ones are kind of denying those extra card draws. So
Notion Thieves puts the
um,
cards in her hands, and Narset just says no.
mm,
Like,
yep,
um, like Notion Thief is the, and the crazy thing about Notion Thief, it has flash. Orcish Bowmaster, it has flash. There is
yep.
a card that they said that they were thinking about adding, but didn't because it doesn't deny your draw. It's only if you draw more than 2 cards, you would draw 1, and then the player draws 1 as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I am happy that I don't have to deal with card denial at lower power levels, which is really nice.
Yeah.
So I think all 3 of them are good includes. So the next card we're going to talk about is Intuition. If you're going to have Gifts Ungiven be a game changer, you might as well make Intuition, because honestly, Intuition is Gifts Ungiven minus 1 card and 1 mana. It's just a really good card. We already talked about Gifts Ungiven for an extended amount of time, so I don't think we need to necessarily spend too much time here.
Basically good for the same reasons. A little less mana, one less card.
Oh, I thought this card was way more expensive than it is. It looks like it's only $15. It looks like. Oh wait,
Intuition?
I lied. Nope, it's $156. I am such a huge liar.
Intuition is?
Yep. I mean, it's only been printed in Tempest, so.
I wish I held on to those.
Me too. I'm a little sad about that. But you know what? I mean, we might be going to Atlanta, so come here, Intuition. Anyway, back to the topic on hand.
Task at hand, yeah. So consecrated Sphinx, which is the hardest thing in the world to say. So this gives you extra draws when your opponents draw spells. This one I think is an interesting include because it is such a high mana value spell. So, but if you've ever played against this card, it really is a kill on sight creature.
Mm-hmm.
You know that if you don't get rid of it immediately, your opponent's going to draw a whole bunch of cards off of it, and we know that at that stage of the game, if you're outdrawing your opponents, the likelihood that you're going to win is way higher.
Yeah, I just honestly, this used to be the boogeyman of the format. I don't think it is anymore. Like, don't get me wrong. I like this card and it is really good, but like, I mean, I guess it's a game changer because like if someone clones it, it's the trade secrets, your build at home trade secrets. Oh, you're going to draw 2. I'm going to draw 4 cards. You're going to draw 8, Tim? Oh, wonderful. I'm going to draw 16. The cool thing is it is you may, so you can kind of curb it if you want, but again, like, it dies to removal, man. Everything dies to removal.
Yeah, but I guess it follows the quality that they are looking for in that it changes the way that the game works.
Yeah,
like
it
changes the fundamental flow of the game.
Right.
And again, like at only 6 mana, this really does, if it is not immediately removed, it draws the opponent 6 cards if all your opponents do is but if all they do is draw their natural card each turn, you draw 6, you've completely refilled your hand for 6 mana. If they don't remove it, it's pretty solid. And then again, it just snowballs from there.
I mean, the rate's really good. Like 6 mana for 6 cards, presuming your opponents don't do anything else, is pretty solid. I mean, that's more than what Risk of Study will draw you for 6 mana. Like, so yeah, I mean, it draws. I mean, but so okay, if we're putting mass card draw in here, do I need to put like, does Brain Geyser end up on the list? Does Sphinx of Revelation end up on this list? I mean, like, what's scarier, drawing 6 cards over the course of 3 people's turns, or drawing 20 cards at your end step?
I think that there's something to the fact that you sink 6 mana into this and then you're done sinking mana into it.
That's true too.
And that if it doesn't get dealt with because it's a permanent, it snowballs over time and gives you so much value over time that you get way more than that 6 mana out of it. Whereas Brain Geyser or anything like that is that 1-to-1
Yeah.
exchange rate where you're just paying one to draw a single card at one time. And I'm not saying those things are bad. They're obviously good when you have an enormous amount of mana, but the reason I think that this is on the list is again that it just once it's on the table, if it's not dealt with, you're drawing way more cards than your opponent.
Yeah,
You're
I
just
guess that
pulling
makes
away from, and
well. I
you don't
mean,
have to keep sinking resources
well,
into
it
it.
also just equalizes you compared to everyone else. Like if you were to
Nope.
think about like card equality, like for one card you gain 6 cards and they've only drawn 3. So like you're keeping up with all 3 of your opponents for 6 mana. So no, everything you said makes a lot of sense, and I'm just a huge fan of the like draw 20 cards on your end step kind of thing. So would I be sad? No, if they ended up on the list, but I don't think they also need to be on the list too. So we're going to go into the next card, and we're talking about Necropotence. I don't know how they missed this the first time. One of the cards that are on the ban list does the same thing, but it says draw now instead of draw on your end step. Well, this puts it into your hand, but yeah, this card definitely needed to be here to begin with. Nope. Do you have anything further to add?
I mean, the only thing I have to add is I can't remember ever seeing this card.
I mean, I've used it. Not recently, but I've used it.
And it's like on paper, it is obviously good, but I just don't see it all that often, and I wonder why that is.
It polices itself. Like most of these cards all police themselves, and I like the idea of having the game changer list. But a lot of these cards do police themselves. When's the last time you've seen a Vorinclex? When's the last time you've seen Humility, Notion Thief, Narset? I mean, like, if you're building a deck that has that strategy, you're gonna see them. But again,
so I would agree that if you're playing Necropotence, you're playing with fire, right? You're playing with heavy artillery.
Right.
If Necropotence is in your deck, so it definitely makes the list for me. So maybe you're right here. That is just most people are looking at this card and going, "That's more powerful than I'm actually shooting for. I'm going to put that over here."
Well,
and if that's the case, if it's on the list,
it's funny. Most of the cards that are on the game changer list are cards that, like, I personally have been like, nah, I'm not trying to aim for the stars. I'm not going to include this in my list. I'm going to avoid some of these cards. Now, there are some cards that I would have put on the list, like Mana Drain, for instance, is one of those cards where it's like, I'm not shooting for that power level, but it's still not on the list. But that's also on the, like, the lower end, because like it is just a counterspell. So, but yeah, so yeah, Necropotence is one of those cards that you're aiming for the stars, and you know what you're doing when you're playing cards like that. So it does rightfully belong here.
So next is Deflecting Swat. So this is the free redirect spell from the cycle of if you have your commander in play, you can cast a spell for free. It's the red one. I'm a little surprised by this one. It is obviously powerful. I'll tell you why I'm surprised, and you just kind of brought it up, is that in most of the game changers, and it's not entirely true, but in most of them, they're not interactive spells.
No.
So the ones that are obviously the free ones. And they're basically saying that this one, because it is effectively a red counterspell to some extent, it is very powerful in that way, but there aren't a lot of interactive spells on here because they rely on your opponent doing something. In a vacuum. They don't do anything.
This does nothing. Like, I strongly disagree with this card. I've had Deflecting Swat rot in my hand in my door deck many a times. Now, the reason why it's in my door deck is because I'm dooring people. I need to protect myself from people doing the same thing right here. However, I just don't think it needs to, like, really? I guess it's free.
I think having interactive spells on the Game Changer list is, and obviously there's going to be exceptions to this, but I think having interactive spells is tricky. because you want, even at lower power levels, you want there to be interaction. And I guess like when we start looking at this spell, we look at, the other, very, very financially expensive but free to play counter spells, and even Teferi's Protection, is a financially expensive card and does an enormous amount of good in an interact or in a like response and interaction kind of way. But only the cream of the crop are on this list. But I don't know about Deflecting Swat. I get.
Realistically speaking, this is just not like it's a protective spell. Like you can't, you can never use this card offensively. And like if you're trying to use it offensively, someone swords like someone else's creature, and you're like, no, I don't want that creature gone. I want this creature gone. All you're doing is pissing off your opponents, and not like you're pissing off one of your opponents, and you really didn't gain anything. Well, no, you're saving the one person's creature, so you're making one opponent happy, but you're also pissing off the other person who's just trying to survive, right? So, I because this spell can't be used offensively. I mean, I guess you can steal someone extra turn spell because most of them do target.
You could say the same thing about the counter spells, though.
Right, and that's my point. I don't think I don't think it belongs here. But
yeah, that they're defensive spells. Yeah,
I don't think they necessarily belong here. So we're gonna go to the next 3 cards. So these were grouped together again on their website, and I understand why they're grouped together because they're amazing tutors. And that will be Crop Rotation, Worldly Tutor, and Gamble. So here's my explanation for Worldly Tutor and Gamble. They had Mystical Tutor, Enlightened Tutor, and Vampiric Tutor. Let's just put the rest of the cycle in here. We were already complaining about Worldly Tutor not being on here, but I mean...
Yep.
And then, so let's just complete the cycle. I've already said about my opinions about these being on the list. I don't think they need to be here because of one of the restrictions you have on the bracket. Like, this is like double dipping here. I don't think it's necessary. Am I glad that they're here? I mean, I guess, but like, again, it seems unnecessary. And then crop rotation.
I think that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think that when we talked about tutors as a qualifier for the bracket system, that you're supposed to have a low amount of tutors in the lower brackets, and that you can have as many tutors as you want in the bigger one. So the argument here is, why do you include these on the Game Changer list when you already have a qualifier on the bracket system that says tutors or something? But we also talked about the fact that you need to define specifically what tutor means. Right. And if you look at that cycle of 1-mana tutors, they each do something specifically different. Mm-hmm. And for that reason, that's why the conversation is complicated. And actually, I think crop rotation serves as a very good example of why the conversation is complicated, because it is just digging a land out of your deck, but it's digging any land out of your deck and putting it onto the battlefield at instant speed. So it's very strong if you're playing in a deck that has really powerful utility lands.
So my first thought about crop rotation was, why is it on the list? Because the lands that you're getting are going to be the Game Changer lands that you're trying to search for anyway. Then I got to like really thinking of the brass taxes, because I've done some really nasty things with crop rotation. So here's why it's on the Game Changer list. It's not searching for your best land in the deck. It is searching for the best land at the moment. And let me tell you how many times I have crop rotationed into a Bajuka Bog, someone reanimating something in their graveyard, and they're just like, oh. That right there is why. Because like there's so many utility lands that can enter and have like an added benefit that will either screw someone over or do whatever it needs to do. And the fact that it's only 1 mana, this card is absolutely, like, the more I thought about it, I'm like, no, this makes a lot of sense.
It's fascinating though, right? Because it's an uncommon, and it's like, and really, there's a very, very few of those on the list, generally speaking. So like, knowing the ceiling for what this card could do will make just about anybody a believer. I agree with you though that it's like this is true about a lot of the tutors too. It's not necessarily the tutors that are the problem; it's the thing that they're getting that is the problem.
Yep.
So it's tricky, and this is where when we talked about what qualifies something as a tutor, like I would definitely include this one in the list, but it is just taking out a land. So that's a challenging conversation, no question.
But before we get into the next cards, I want to ask what happened to my face. Oh wait, there it is. We got there. Bad jokes.
Yeah. Next the next one is Seedborn Muse. This card allows you to untap with all your opponent's untap steps. It just creates an enormous amount of value for you. It's very one-sided, and in a multiplayer game, I mean, it's good in 1v1.
Mm-hmm.
Having it be that you're doing it on everybody's turn just really creates an enormous amount of value. So I'm not surprised that we saw this one here. I'm actually happy to see it here because I think it's really. I think it's a busted card.
I have a couple of defenses why it might not have to be, because part of the requirements is to not chain extra turns together. And when you're taking turns on other people's turns, isn't that just chaining extra turns together? Like, to me,
that is such a stretch. that is such a stretch.
Tim, every time that I play Seaborn Muse in my door deck, tell me, listen, that's not what's happening.
Listen, that it's not what's happening because you are trying to apply the idea of like what you are doing, not the actual rules of the game. Taking extra turns is a specific game action. Doing stuff on other people's turns because you have a lot of extra resources is not the same thing. So it belongs here.
That's 6 in one and half a dozen in the other, right? Like...
It is not. One thing is technically correct and the other thing is not.
Some say tomato, some say squishy red fruit. Isn't that how
one says that?
No?
Yeah, no one says squishy red fruit.
Oh. Well, I didn't want to say this, but
yeah, so Seedborn so the takeaway here, folks, remember, is the Seedborn Muse belongs there. It should have always been there.
It should have been burnt with fire. Yeah. No,
thank you and good night.
I've heard a lot of people with Seedborn Muse, and I apologize. So we're gonna go into the next card, and we're talking about natural order. This is one of those things where it's like, this is one of those really powerful cheat your creature into play tutors, and what makes it so good is how cheap it is. It is only 4 mana to search your library for any green creature. I mean, you do have to sacrifice a creature in order to do it, but if you have a whole bunch of tokens and you pay 4 mana and sacrifice one of those tokens, you know what wins the game? Crater Hoof. Is Crater Hoof green, Tim?
It is a green card, I'm fairly sure. Yeah. I think both this one and the next one fall into they were stretching for green cards and just grasped like the best green combo pieces they could find. Like, are they actually that good? I mean, like, green players all complain that there weren't enough green cards on the Gamechanger list, and this is what you get. Like, do I actually think that this is strong enough? I don't. I don't think that this is strong enough to be on there. I mean, Worldly Tutor didn't make the original cut, so now we have both Worldly Tutor and Natural Order.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess this cheats it into play.
That's what makes it more powerful. Yeah, I think.
I guess.
But how many green creatures just say I win the game once they come into play? A decent amount.
I mean, Crater Hoof doesn't even say I win the game unless you have a board state.
That's true. I mean, yes. I mean, I understand where this card is coming from. But like, there's Defense of the Heart that didn't make the list. There's Tooth and Nail that didn't make the I mean, one costs 9 and the other one requires someone else to have 2 creatures. But like, you're telling me that's like a hard thing to kind of accomplish?
Yeah. I mean, listen, good card, no question.
Yes.
Natural Order, good card, stamp of approval. Does it deserve to be on the GC? I don't know. I don't know, and also, I don't know about the next one either.
Also, when's the last time you've seen a Natural Order?
Yeah, And so the next one's the same, similar. It's food chain, and it's a green enchantment. And again, without going into great detail, it basically allows for a couple infinite combos with cards that you can play from
Yep.
exile. So, like, is it part of a couple of 2-card combos? Yes, but
Sure.
to our earlier point, like having 2-card combos is on the list already of things that you shouldn't do at lower power levels.
Does the
So
article say anything about like I want to kind of see what they said about natural order and stuff.
yeah.
Because okay, so here's natural order. This one is the strongest ways you can cheat out big creatures early. Natural order cheats mana and acts as an effective tutor all in one. Okay.
Does it have to get a? Does it have to get? It has to get a green creature.
It has to be a green creature, yes.
So you can't even get Eldrazi with it. Like,
no,
I don't know.
Yeah, but there's a lot of good green X creatures too. I guess. I mean, like, I would love to sacrifice a 2/2 zombie for a Hypnotoad any day of the week. Like,
sure. So it's utility at that point. Like, it's an effective tutor at that point. And again, like, good, yes.
Yeah.
Changing the game, I don't know.
But you know what else is on the list of brackets? Hey, tutoring. Don't do a lot of it.
Yeah.
And it's a lower power level. This, like, I get where they're coming from, and I understand why they're putting like poster childs. But do you need so many? Like,
these two are stretch for me. No, like both natural order and food chain are a stretch for me.
And this is their response for food chain. People tend to not play fairly with food chain. It mostly fuels infinite combos, and while those are kept out of the first two brackets, it still feels worth calling out and limiting Game Changer's slot for bracket 3.
So we need to put Horseshoe Crab on this list.
Don't. I want to. I'm going to build a dance party
because people don't play that game, play that card fairly,
no,
right? You put another card on it, make an infinite combo, and win. So Horseshoe Crab, Game Changer.
It is. I agree. Now this next card. This next card definitely belongs on the list.
Slam dunk.
This card I avoid so much. I've had so many decks that this would be good in, and I avoid it because of what it does. So we're talking about Aura Shards. I'm actually going to read this one because this one is just that good. I'm not going to read the mana cost or anything, but it says whenever a creature you control enters the battlefield, you may destroy target artifact or enchantment. Oh God. It shuts down so much. Like,
I think that the reason this is so good is that almost all Commander games evolve into an arms race of how much value you can get with all the different pieces that you have on your board. Mm-hmm. And to do that, you almost always have some amount of artifacts and enchantments that fuel that, mm-hmm. right? So think of it like building the pieces of of whatever monster engine that you're trying to build. So this hoses the hell out of that. Like, it just absolutely makes it impossible for any of your opponents to build their machine if there are any artifacts or enchantments, and there's just so many of those running around these days. So I agree. I remember buying a copy of this for one of my first Commander decks for my Karametra deck, and then and that Karametra deck played with creatures that could blink themselves. They played with like White Mane Lion and Fleetfoot Panther, creatures that could blink themselves, so that you could use them over and over and over to get Karametra's trigger. So it could get this trigger a bunch of times as well. Unfun for anybody else at the table. So if that's the game you want to play, put an Aura Shards in your deck. But otherwise, if you want to lose all your friends real fast.
Do you know what deck I really wanted to put this in? The Black Panther deck that I built. I wanted to so bad. Oh yeah. Just to clarify, if you haven't heard that episode, you should go watch it now because that episode was fantastic. However, it was a heir apparent deck. So basically, there was going to be no such thing as artifacts and enchantments on your side of the board ever. So, nope, totally makes sense. Moving on. I like this card, and I'm sad what they did to me.
So This card is a land that most people would agree is incredibly overpowered, and it's Field of the Dead, which if you have 7 or more different lands in
Yep.
play, every time you landfall, you get a 2/2 zombie.
Specifically with different names. So it doesn't work with
So
a deck with a whole
well,
bunch of basics.
right, but like different names is not a difficult build around in Commander unless you're monocolored. Like that's not a problem. So Field of the Dead goes in any kind of lands matter deck,
Mhm.
any kind of landfall deck. It's easy to get to 7 different lands, especially if you're in 3 or more colors, like your Tival deck.
My Taval deck, literally every single land had a different name. I intentionally, like,
Right.
I had 5 basics in the whole entire list, and I intentionally did one of each and then 2 snug covered.
Right,
Because
so that you have all
why
different
the
lands.
hell
Yep.
not? And, like, what
Yeah,
did
it
that
was
cost me
like you
besides
said.
a little bit of extra effort? Like,
Yeah, nothing.
it cost me nothing. So, yeah, this card's busted.
Yeah.
It deserves to be here, and I'm thank you, Watsy Gods, for doing this, but I will be sad to only play this in 3s or above. And the last card we're going to talk about on the cards added, this card makes a lot of sense. It's Mishra's Workshop. The decks that this works in, it is absolutely nutters. However, I don't think it needed to be in here because the base price for this card is $2,675. So you're not seeing it, people. Like,
No, never. Not
nope,
once.
not once. I will never own this card. I mean, I don't want to say never. Who knows? I might become a millionaire doing this podcast.
Yeah.
And when that happens,
I won't.
First card I
I
buy.
won't announce that I've won the lottery, but there will be signs.
there will be signs. There will be a Mr. Workshop in every deck that I build, which would be awful, by the way.
I don't know how I feel about this one. I agree that the price tag polices this.
Yeah.
And really, I also think it's too niche. Like, is it incredibly overpowered if you're playing it with a preponderance of artifacts? Yes, but like really, I don't see. There are decks where artifacts matter, and in those decks, this card is crazy. But like anywhere else, I just don't.
Card's just
It's
bad.
fine.
It's
I
actively bad
guess.
everywhere else.
Yeah, so like I did it need to take up a spot. It's funny because again, this to some extent feels like a whale thing or a CEDH player thing where they're like seeing this card and seeing how overpowered it is and you know they in super high powered decks, but in like mid-range casual builds like what we're doing, I would never even consider this card.
Look.
First because of the price tag, but
Look, I'm going to suppose if you're going to put Mishra's Workshop on here, why isn't Tabernacle of Pendrell Vale on this list? That land, why isn't Library of Alexandria? Is that card banned? I don't remember. Is Library banned? Even if it's not.
I don't remember.
Like, those price tags alone stop people from playing those lands. But Tabernacle is amazing. There, I would put it in like I was genuinely considering spending $2,000 on a Tabernacle to put in my Windgrace deck because I'm crazy. But like Tabernacle's really good. Like making everyone pay 1 for their creatures on a land drop. It's a repeatable board wipe for a land drop. Why isn't that on the Game Changer list, Tim?
It is.
Is it really?
The Tabernacle? Yeah.
Oh, it totally belongs here. Okay, thank God. Okay,
It was,
so ignore the last
was,
2 minutes of our podcast, people.
and
And it's staying in. I'm not editing it out. You get to see our mistakes.
we embrace our mistakes as a
Hell
natural
yeah, we
part
do.
and a necessary part of the learning process.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's the list. I mean, that's what we've what got unbanned, what got pulled, what got added. We'll put the link to the actual article in the notes down below. You can find it yourself, I'm sure. If you found us, you could probably find it, but we'll put it down below as well. The article also has some additional stuff that they talk about that we're not going to get into. They spend a lot of time talking about other cards cards that the community has been talking about. We've mentioned Mana Drain a couple of times. I'm a pretty big proponent of that being on
It
the
really
list
should
because
be.
I see Mana Drain swing games all the
I'm
time.
sorry,
But
Tim.
they make an argument for why it's not.
Yeah.
So I mean, so they
Yeah.
have thought about it, but they
Yeah.
talk about a lot of other cards that they've been thinking about. We're not going to go into those details today, just for time's sake. But definitely check out the article to see the things they're talking about. And really, the other thing that we wanted to note is that the changes took the list from 40 cards to 61 cards. So that is a third again as much as there was before. 35% increase in how many cards are on the list. Huge swing here. So it's very notable that they made such a big change. And it's very, I think it's easy to forget that we're still kind of in the beta of what
Oh
this
yeah.
bracket system is going to look like. But they were very clear about that in the announcement. So fascinated, interested to see where we go from here.
So the one last question I want to bring up before we head out of here is how big can the Game Changer list become before it is over bloated or becomes like meaningless? Like if every card's a game changer, how many game changers are you allowed to have in the deck?
Right.
So
I think that's a natural part of the question, right? Is that as the list gets bigger, how many of them can you play? Because I'm always reminded, right? I'm always reminded of, I think it was The Incredibles. It's like one of my favorite lines from a movie ever, where the villain says, "If everybody's super, then no one is."
oh wait, I thought it was, honey, where is my super suit? No, that's not your favorite line. That's my
No,
favorite line.
no. I no,
Dang
but
it.
the premise behind what the guy is
Yes.
saying there is that if everything is overpowered, nothing is, because then that power level is now average.
It's the
That
normal,
brings
yeah.
the average there. So when we have a list of 100 cards, and I think that you have to put in context how many cards there are in the format, which I don't actually know the number, but it's tens of thousands, right?
Yes.
30
Yeah.
to 40,000 to 50. Like I
Mhm.
don't even know what the number is anymore, but it's an enormous amount. So 100 cards is still not that big of a list, but it is an interesting question to consider that how how big can this list get for people to still look at it and go, that's I'm going to take that into consideration, right? It feels like when they set their limit at 40, I think that they were on to something, that it's like if you make it too big, that it won't be taken with the same level of seriousness. So I wonder if we're already getting close to something that feels like too many.
So here's why I'm going to kind of agree with that statement. For instance, I forgot Tabernacle of Pendrell Vale is on the Game Changer list. Like, you're not going to be able to remember a list of 100 cards easily. Now, one thing that does make the list a whole lot easier is that everywhere you go to look at cards, it clearly signifies if it's a game changer. So, like if you're building your deck on Moxfield, it clearly indicates what's a game changer and what's not, which makes it a little bit easier on the onset. I guess the problem would be like, hey, I'm in the real world playing a game of Magic. Someone says, hey, this isn't a game changer, and then they change the list and now it is a game changer, and you're like, well, this wasn't a game changer 2 weeks ago. Like it makes it a little bit more confusing. But I think honestly the magic number you could probably get away with 75. I think 75 is like the maximum, but I think if you trim the fat and were more clear on your expectations of what tutors are, how many are allowed in said bracket level, you could trim that fat of vampire tutor, demonic tutor, enlightened tutor. You could trim the fat and make the list smaller because you don't need poster sign cards on the game changer list anymore because the bracket system covers it for you already.
Right.
So I think 75 is the max if you're going to have poster cards on the game changer list. But I think honestly 40 was a pretty solid number. but getting rid of the whole tutor section would solve most of that problem too.
Yeah, I look at the 61 and I think to myself, I don't think it would be that difficult to get it back down to 50.
Yeah.
And really, like, I don't know what it is about the number 50 that feels more manageable to me. Well, because when I hear you say 75, my brain goes, why not 100? What's the difference at that point?
Because there's not. It really isn't. Yeah.
Right. But I don't know. I don't know where the line is, and I know how big the game is and how it's just this ever expanding universe, and that it's just going to continue to get larger. So,
Yeah.
I actually think that because I know that our ideas are not you're not like unique, and that other voices are saying similar things out there, and I'm just guessing that. I haven't heard anybody else talk about this yet, but I know that they have, and that there's other voices out there contributing to this conversation. And I think that I'm very interested to see where we land. But I would not be surprised that if once we get to the actual bracket, like this is it, this is no longer a beta, this is now full release. Now I wouldn't be surprised if we landed somewhere closer to 50 if they didn't do some of that trimming that makes talking about.
That makes a lot of sense.
I don't know why that number just rings as very very organic to me.
It's just a good number.
So, yeah, it's not so bad.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's it, friends and opponents. It is time for us over here at Head Games to rejoin our respective scurries, which is the word for a group of squirrels. Nice. Thank you for spending time with us on the Head Games Commander podcast. Remember that you can support this show and all of our other content by watching this and other videos on our YouTube, by checking out streams on Twitch, and you can find links for all that noise right down here in the description.
But before we scoop things up, we want to hear from you, the think tank. What did you think of Gumphrey's statue of Steve? Let us know in the comments below. Okay, here's the real question. What do you think about these unbannings and the changes? Clearly, that's the real question, but I really want to hear about Gumphrey. Are they good ideas? Has WotC gone too far? Let us know in the comments below. And as always, thank you for playing along with us, and have a wonderful day. That was Gumphrey, by the way. Bye.